The story starts with a girl calling her brother and a gothic emo saying he wasn't her brother at all. The scene cuts to the protagonist Takeshi going to school and saying he'd rather be anywhere other than his home, even in hell. I'm sure it's because his brother eats the things he buys. Who goes through this comment there? On the way to school he talks to his girlfriend, and after she leaves he sees a girl simply fainting and takes her to the infirmary. Getting there, she who was out starts calling her brother and hugs Takeshi, but after waking up she throws him on the wall and points a gun at him asking where they were. He manages to explain the situation by saying where they were, and after they understand each other, she reveals her name, Mui. Takeshi can see her magic aura, and soon after they are attacked by that gothic emo she calls brother. Sasuke from Paraguay had a group and blocks their exit with magic. He orders that a swordsman in your group fights Takeshi when he sees that he has a sword, and somehow Takeshi's attacks manage to compete with this guy's sword when Takeshi is using a wooden sword. Doesn't make any sense. It seems like Japanese think that the public is retarded to do something like that. After a lot of beatings, finally Takeshi's sword breaks, bringing the minimum of reality, but he, after activating a magic power, manages to defeat this swordsman even with the sword broken. Again the lie. But I have to say the fight is great. They manage to get away, and her brother says he has the same style of evasive magic that the swordsman used. The two run away and the friends go after them. They hide and the girl starts crying, apologizing for involving him in this and also apologizing for having turned him into a magician. She explains that teenagers who come into contact with magic become magicians, less adults who lose the ability to develop magic. She explains that she just wanted to find her brother and says that her memories were erased by that organization and were changed by others. She continues saying that the magicians always caused fear in people, so the magicians always avoided showing their powers, but there were those who did not agree with that and did not want to follow this rule, and they created the organization that is after capturing it, called Ghost Trailers. She explains that there is a school of magic in the other world, but she can't give many details because Takeshi's girlfriend shows up there angry that he missed training, asking who she was. Of course he didn't have time to explain and just asks her to run away with Mui, who is the girl from the other world. However, she jealously disturbs the ghost trailers and makes one of them use magic to attack her, but he ends up dying after that, and Mui explains that mages can't use ancestral magic in the human world if it's not bad for them. And to summarize this opera, his girlfriend and his friend who appears there next also gain magical powers, and those the former swordsman fights Takeshi again but can't hit him thanks to the magic of predicting Takeshi's enemy attacks. He underestimates Takeshi, saying that he wouldn't be able to defeat him just by running away, but he hardly expected that Mui was there ready to attack him by surprise, and that's what she does with her lightning magic. Taking advantage of the gap, Takeshi ends the fight defeating the swordsman with an attack. Then Mui tells them to come with her to the world of magicians, and the episode ends with them arriving in this world that she says is called the Ruined World, and Takeshi says in narration that no matter how much he would go anywhere to leave home, he would never expect to go to a place like this. Mui says that this is a place where time and space has been distorted, so it is and is not Tokyo at the same time. In the middle of the city, a generic little villain says that soon they would realize their goal of creating a world just for wizards. After the opening anime shows them at the school of magic that Mui mentioned being taken care of by a healing mage in the infirmary. Then Mui takes them to meet the principal, who, guess what, is a teenage girl, or at least she looks like it, and she apologizes for Mui having involved them in this. She gives an explanation about this place, saying that 16 years ago there was a magical war where magicians fought each other. She explains that a magician with a great power led the ghost trailers to a hard battle against an alliance of mages who fought to stop it, and the leader of the ghost trailers, named Kazuma, used a magic to destroy the world, but 15 mages divided the world in two to prevent the destruction of the human world, and so that world was destroyed in place. She explains that a pact was formed over the war where mages would only fight in this world and leave the human world alone, and to ensure that a sage created a spell that prevents mages from using it. Ancestral magic in the human world. That's why that magician from before was the base. However, normal magics are still allowed there. She explains that there are also 6 classes of magic, and when Takeshi asks what happened to the enemy leader, the director replies that he is missing. To finish, she explains that there are communities of magicians where each one believes in something different. Some are against magicians hiding their powers like the ghost trailers. Others are in favor and protect humanity community and also have neutral communities in relation to that. She says that the three had two choices: or they stayed in the academy and learned about magic, or they returned to the human world and abandoned magic, and Takeshi chooses to stay. In that the other two choose the same, and the director says that to learn the basics of magic would go to class C and Mui would go with them because despite being rank S she should be punished for having broken the rules and left the school. But she says that her community would recover her brother, as I had told her before. Mui says she would show them their rooms, and the scene cuts to Takeshi's younger brother at home asking what was going on because in addition to Takeshi transferring from school to school, Kurumi also transferred, but his mother says he had proof to do it concentrate, so it wasn't worth worrying about it. The scene cuts with the three in the magic class. There they learn about ancestral magic, and Takeshi discovers that to use this type of magic he had to have an artifact called aspect, and how he didn't have one. Mui is instructed to take it to the school store to buy it. On the way he gets to know a little more about her, and she reveals herself to be a pure blood mage for coming from a family of mage. Getting there he asks for something similar to a Japanese sword, and the owner gives him a sword that belonged to a magician with evasive magic like him and who had fought in the war, being one of the 15 great magicians. He, when observing the hilt, sees a magic circle that the owner says is of evasive magic, and Mui explains that if you put your own magic circle in your aspect it can have a synergistic effect, but the owner says that an amateur using another magician's magic circle would be dangerous. However, as he was an evasive magic mage it wouldn't have problem, and to prove it attacks Takeshi. However, and about to be defeated his sword is activated and he holds the magic enough for a cartridge to come out of it, but soon he says he is tired and deactivates the power. The store owner explains that he endured until the cartridge of the sword come out so he would get along with the sword. He explains that this is a sword that shoots and he could use the magic of the previous owner of the sword and give him 3 special bullets that allow him to change the shape of the sword based on the magic of the other wizard. He decides to keep this sword called Twilight, and the scene cuts to a dialogue between two villains where one of them, being a woman, says she eliminated several members of the wizard brace community that the director is part of just because they saw her face, and by the words of the guy with glasses they were planning something bad. The scene cuts with their class teacher explaining to the three that there were more than 50 magical communities in this magical world. However, only 7 of them became international magical associations and are considered the strongest. Among them were the Wizard Brace, which is the community of which the headmistress of the school is part of, as I already mentioned. He explains that although Ghost Trailers is a powerful community they never mix with other communities, so they cannot be part of the association. He explains that Ghost Trailer considers Wizard Braces their stronger rivals, and the anime reveals that Mui is part of the Wizard brand, but many there don't like her because they say her brother is a traitor. Upon hearing this, Takeshi remembers his brother who doesn't get along with him and called him a traitor in an argument they had. The scene cuts to another day with them in class. Takeshi and Mui were getting closer, which makes Isoshima, who is his girlfriend, jealous, thus harming their relationship. Then we see a flashback of the past of the two, showing that he and Isoshima were childhood friends, and the anime shows that in fact they were not really dating and were just pretending to keep the boys away from Isoshima since she was very desired for being beautiful. However, they promised to separate if one of them found someone they really love. The two make peace, and continuing, the anime shows a conversation between Takeshi's brother and his mother, who were talking about the change of school. Takeshi and Isoshima and his brother says it was about time to make peace with his brother. The anime shows a flashback where he shows his relationship with his brother. Both were friends with Isoshima, but Geku ended up finding out about the relationship of the two and didn't accept it very well. The two fought and Takeshi pushed his brother, who is Geku, unintentionally, and he was hit by a car. Back in the present, Geku talks to himself asking if Takeshi was wanting to take everything from him, i.e. he was still pissed off. Back at school, Isoshima teases Takeshi a bit when she sees he was carrying some pictures of her, and he tries to explain that he took them back from some boys. She lets him have one, saying that that's what boyfriends do, and they leave. Watching from the stairs there was Mui, who was carrying a ticket to see a witch who reads fortunes. The episode ends with Isoshima wondering if Takeshi only came back with her because the Mui asked, and if he would have continued to ignore it if she hadn't said anything. In a dramatic scene she asks who he likes after all. The scene cuts with Mui going to see this fortune teller, and her request is that she discover her brother's location, and after finding out she goes there. The scene cuts with Kazumi, who is Takeshi's friend trying to control his destructive magic but failing. Then Takeshi arrives there to give moral support, saying that he wasn't getting the hang of it either, and then Isoshima appears there saying that Mui disappeared and all she found was a map of her with a circled location. Takeshi solves it. Tell this to the teacher, who is worried that outside the school perimeter was not safe thanks to the ghost trailers and their battles. And to make matters worse, the director was not at the school at the time. Takeshi tells Kazumi and Isoshima that he would go after the Mui because he understands what it's like to be hated by his brother, but of course Isoshima tries to stop him because he is dangerous, and meanwhile the anime shows Mui looking for his brother. Takeshi tries to sneak out to look for her but is approached by surprise by Kazumi and for Isoshima, who say they would go with him. The three then go through the hidden portal and go to the ruin world. Getting there they see the magic war happening in practice and magicians fighting each other. They find a mysterious person wearing a white robe that warns them to go back to the academy because it wasn't safe there. That person was the guardian of the portal they crossed to get there, but Takeshi doesn't listen and crosses the protection barrier that the guardian erected to protect the portal and goes after the Mui. The scene cuts with Mui, who managed to find her brother, but he starts to attack her and defeats her easily. He explains that this was a trap to lure her there and that fortune teller was a member of the ghost trailers. She passes out to take her to their base, but the three arrive there in time and Takeshi sees her passed out and starts a battle against her brother called Tsunashi. I forgot to say his name. LOL. Takeshi is attacked by he with ice magic but manages to dodge thanks to his evasive magic. However, he uses a skill called Ice Castle Drops to prevent him from continuing dodging before freezing him, but Kazumi gets in front of the magic and is trapped in an ice barrier already in Takeshi's place, and when he sees Takeshi trying to save him he tells him to focus on saving Mui and leaving him behind, and the anime reveals that he did that because Takeshi had protected his older sister news of some delinquents in the past. However, after a while there Kazumi says it was difficult to breathe and Isoshima warns Takeshi that his oxygen was running out. Takeshi asks if he doesn't understand how much he made Mui suffer, but he replies that if she really was his sister what he did to her was none of his business. The two continue to talk about feelings and such, but Takeshi notices that Kazumi's situation wasn't good at all. He takes advantage of Tsuganashi's attack to hitting it and hitting the ice that held Kazumi, thus breaking it. Remember that Takeshi's sword has a cartridge that holds magic bullets from another magic user and makes the sword turn into a weapon, so he asks Kazumi to put his destructive magic inside the bullet that Kazumi was using to train, but he says that it would take some time. Takeshi, Isoshima, and Mui, who was healed by Isoshima, are in charge of delaying his brother as much as possible, and when they couldn't take it anymore Kazumi's bullet finally gets ready, and after giving it to Takeshi he uses it to defeat her brother. However, that guy with glasses from Ghost Trailers called Kepi appears there and decides to just take her brother, although without doing anything when seeing that there was something coming towards them. The scene cuts with them in the academy being scolded by the director for breaking the rules. She asks them to promise that they would never do something like that again, but Takeshi says he couldn't promise because Mui wouldn't stop looking for her brother, and the director says that's okay and would give them all a chance. The episode ends with the fortune teller, who was actually a member of the Ghost Trailers, trying to understand how Kepi didn't capture Mui if she handed it to her on a platter, but he says that some teenagers got in the way and they were wearing her school uniform. What do you mean from her school? He calls her teacher Violet from the Subaru School of Magic. That is, she is undercover as a teacher at their school. It is with this plot twist that I end this video. If you liked it, don't forget to like and comment to strengthen the channel and motivate me to bring more summaries like this one.